Alright, what's going on, guys? There's been a lot of discussion going on recently, a lot of concern within the community, and a lot of pessimistic outlooks about the future of Elden Ring, at least within the next year. And the majority of it is stemming from the thought of if Elden Ring is actually going to have a full-scale DLC like the past games. Because I'm not gonna lie, Elden Ring is very different than what we've gotten in the past. We really can't look at this game the same way we looked at, say, Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, or even Dark Souls 3, because there's a lot of things affecting Elden Ring that weren't a product of the times back then. So today I'm going to break down all of that for you, go over all of the news we've been getting recently and how it pertains to the idea of if Elden Ring is going to have DLC and what we can expect in the rest of Elden Ring's life cycle. Because a lot of factors have come up in the past few days that we need to address, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure how to feel about it. But before we dive into that today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. The channel is getting so close to 50k, and I always keep you guys up to date on everything going on at FromSoftware. So let's get into it. Now, if you missed the news that happened on Friday, it is a very big piece of context in our discussion today. So let me get you caught up on that real quick. On Friday, a number of things happened. First of all, a new tweet came out from FromSoftware PR where they announced that we're going to be hiring for several positions, looking to increase the number of hands in development for several new projects. One of which is specifically going to be involving mechs, likely related to the long-rumored Armored Core title in development. Which, if you don't know, Armored Core is a sci-fi game that FromSoftware produced a long time ago, very different to the standard Souls formula, and it has been leaked several times that that's going to be one of their next games coming out. In addition to that, there was a new interview with Miyazaki, where he detailed kind of the state of FromSoftware at the moment, and that they have several new games in the works, a number of which are not being directed by him. And he also stated that we're going to be seeing a different type of FromSoftware going forward. Now, there were a number of remarks in that interview that I did not go into detail about in the last video, that have very interesting implications for Elden Ring going forward, and we do need to get into those today, because I think it does give a good insight into the likelihood of DLC. When it comes to DLC in Elden Ring, we need to go back quite a bit, and look at the overall atmosphere surrounding FromSoftware and how they view the success of Elden Ring. Now, I'm not going to dwell on this too much, but a while back we got Katakawa's investors report, where they broke down the yearly earnings and outlook for the next fiscal year, including FromSoftware's revenue streams. And one of the things highlighted in that investors report was how they were going to continue to make money off of Elden Ring and incentivize players to purchase the game even after it's already been out for a while. And the marketing for Elden Ring is still going on. At the time of me recording this, a new ad just came out for Elden Ring that features UFC middleweight champion Israel Adesanya ahead of his title defense this coming weekend. I'm a huge UFC nerd, so I thought this ad was awesome, and we can garner a bit from this. Now, Elden Ring marketing has been pretty heavy at the UFC events recently, but the interesting thing to look at here is that they are still allocating a good marketing budget to generate new sales of the game. Now, the fact that they want people to buy their game is obvious, but the fact that they are creating new marketing material is a good sign in and of itself. Elden Ring was a breakout success. It is FromSoftware's most successful game ever, and for them not to capitalize on DLC for this game and generate more sales off the back of that success would be very surprising indeed. But let's talk about what we know for a fact for a second. Support for Elden Ring is going to continue at least for a little while. There are going to be more updates in the coming months. The official Elden Ring Twitter account tweeted this a few weeks ago. "Thank you for playing Elden Ring and for all your support during the months since release. We appreciate all the discussions surrounding the game and are working on further improvements for updates going forward. We hope you continue to enjoy your adventures in the lands between." Now, this tweet was put out after the response from the latest update was a little bit less than positive, but Miyazaki himself also confirmed more updates are on the way, and I believe the primary focus of those are going to be balancing and improving the game's multiplayer functionality, which I'll talk about more at the end of the video. But the thing that seems to be completely absent from the discussion on these is the likelihood of a big paid DLC. We really have heard nothing on the matter. Now, I do understand that it has only been 4 months since the game's release, but normally at this point we would hear some kind of stirrings from the leak crowd, or have some kind of minor hint at all that more actual in-game content is on the way. However, we haven't heard any of that, but it all depends on what they mean by update. When they talked about more updates for Elden Ring being on the way, that very well could mean more content, rather than just touching up what is already playable in the game. But I want to talk about a style of update that we saw a while back. If you guys remember a couple months ago, there was an update that added Jarbear and a new NPC, and some additional steps to some NPC quest lines that were already in the game. And I am slightly inclined to believe that we may be getting those instead of a paid DLC. at least when it comes to the content that's going to be releasing for the rest of this year. Because I don't know if y'all been keeping up with the cut content progression and the people that have been data mining and exploring the files of the game, but Elden Ring has a lot of cut content. Honestly, a little bit of a concerning amount. And even when it comes to the things that are in the game, we still have several incomplete quest lines, and things that feel like they should be in the game but aren't, such as the arenas that we can find around the world. And a lot of the cut content seems to be last-minute decisions, which is oftentimes not a good indicator that more content is on the way. Now, I don't say that to be pessimistic, I'm always an optimist when it comes to these things. But as we can see with the way the game was delayed, I would be very impressed if we get a good Ring City style DLC sometime this year. But let's talk about something positive. I do still think it is way too early to write off DLC completely. The interview definitely sounded like production at FromSoftware is solely focused on the games going forward, but until September and Tokyo Game Show, I'm not going to start getting worried. Tokyo Game Show is going to be on September 15th this year, and would be a great time to announce Elden Ring DLC if we are going to get some, because that'll be around the time right before all the marketing for the holiday season begins, and a good time to let all the updates come out prior to the DLC's release. But let me walk you through the scenario I'm imagining in my head. We know more updates are coming, that's not really a question. What it sounds like to me is we have about 3 more to expect, at least 3 that are going to be focusing on balancing, and then they have to find a way to make multiplayer more accessible. As everybody knows, it's no secret anymore, the multiplayer for Elden Ring is pretty much dead. People aren't really co-oping anymore, and the ones that played through the game with their friends have already beaten it and moved on, so there's not really any worlds to invade, and PvP is suffering as a cost of that. And so I think one of the solutions they're going to end up taking for that is opening up the mini arenas we can find around the map. Now obviously I have a lot more solutions in mind, because that alone does not address the real issue of the multiplayer just not being intuitive enough in these games, but that is a realistic expectation, which I do think is going to happen sometime this year. So in those updates we have coming out, here's how I think you should temper your expectations. I think we're going to see some weapon and Ash of War balancing, hopefully with the major outliers like Rivers of Blood and Bloodhound Steppe. Probably some more bug fixes because we know there are still quite a bit. They may end up finishing a couple of the quest lines that we know are still in the game. I know people have been talking about Tanith's quest line, as well as a few others that are missing steps or are incomplete. But when it comes to major content, the arenas are probably the only thing I see them actually doing this year. Here's what I expect in terms of paid DLC. If, and it looks like it will be, Armored Core as the next FromSoftware game to be released, I imagine that's going to be quite a hard sell to the new Elden Ring players and the hardcore Souls crowd. I know I'm going to be picking the game up when it comes out, but I also know a lot of people who won't be. Now I imagine that's information FromSoftware is expecting as well, and if they are, a great way to make up that lost revenue would be with Elden Ring DLC. And everybody knows if they made DLC for this game, it would quite literally be printing money. So that's my full prediction of what we can expect. I would say around 3 or 4 more updates for the rest of this year, balancing bug fixes, multiplayer accessibility, that kind of stuff, and then the new Armored Core game coming out in around springtime of next year. And then if we get Elden Ring DLC, I could see it coming out shortly after that. But it is hard to make these predictions because Elden Ring is such a weird situation. We honestly have no realistic hints at DLC at all. The leakers aren't giving us anything to work with, and the more cut content we find, the stranger it all gets. But I would be happily proven wrong. Like I said, if we got DLC this year, that would be absolutely amazing, and I would be very surprised. But that's just my thoughts on it. Let me know what you guys think down below. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like on it and subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll catch you in the next one.